Hello, welcome to this webinar. We're going to wait just another minute to allow folks to log in to the presentation since we've just launched. So we'll just wait another minute and then we'll get started. Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's webinar. This is our CADFP Project Request Best Practices webinar featuring Professor Alfred Shitandi and Professor Claudius Mundoma. This presentation is being recorded and will be shared on the CADFP YouTube channel this week, and we will send a link to the recording to everyone who registered. My name is Randy Butler, and I work at IIE as a program specialist with the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program. And today I'm happy to be joined by CADFP Advisory Council member, Professor Alfred Shitandi, and CADFP Fellow, Professor Claudius Mundoma, and they will be sharing details on their own CADFP experiences and their recommendations for creating a competitive project request. We'll first be hearing from Professor Shitandi, and then we will hear from Professor Mundoma. After Professor Mundoma presents, we will open for Q&A. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time through the Q&A box in Zoom, and we will address them during the Q&A. And at the end of the presentation, I will have several reminders before we end the webinar. The application for project requests will open July 15th, 2024, and will close on September 18th, 2024. If selected, the project visit can begin as early as January 6th, 2025, and grant activity must be completed by November 30th, 2025. So first, I would like to welcome Professor Alfred Shitandi, and I'm going to pin his video there. And he has been engaged in research management, providing support to multidisciplinary researchers for more than 25 years, and has a long-term interest in building positive relationships in international education. He shares the perception that international education offers a robust basis for building innovative understanding and a serene world. He was the founding director of research at Kisii University in Kenya, where he successfully coordinated the establishment of the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program at the institution, which has attracted several international African scholars from the diaspora to Kenya over a 10-year timeframe. His efforts at Kisii University have led to the selection of nearly 20 projects for awarding by the CADFP. He's a member of the CADFP Advisory Council, which reviews and selects projects that will facilitate equitable, effective, and mutually beneficial international higher education engagements between scholars in Africa and African diaspora academics in Canada and the United States. So now I will hand it over to him to share his advice and thoughts on creating a competitive project request. Thank you, Professor Shitandi.
Thank you very much, Randy and Claudius, for having me here. I will share a bit of my experience and some of my thoughts, which could be useful in setting up competitive proposals. As you have been informed, I have worked at Kisii University now for over 13 years. And 13 years ago, our university had just gotten its charter to be a university, and we get a charter from the Kenya national government. And so we had this deep interest in establishing new academic programs. And we saw a potential through the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program to support us in establishing these programs. we had reached out in our case, to a fairly huge Kenyan diaspora in the area in Minneapolis, who originated initially from Kisii, Kenya. And we were introduced to them. They introduced us to the Carnegie Africa Diaspora Fellowship Program. I was asked to coordinate our faculty applications and create a support base and seek contacts for them. And so for us, our approach initially was thus institutional. And so my office assisted in planning, organizing, leading, and controlling applications from a central place, which were then submitted to the program for consideration. As you might be aware, the Carnegie review criteria looks at overall quality of the proposed project, and there is also a component of mutual benefit which is desired. And amongst other aspects, there is also a consideration as to whether there is a fit and quality of the proposed scholar match and the potential for impact. And so for us, as a university, it was very important that we develop a proposal focus of the Carnegie specific funding requirements. And that is something which I would stress from the onset, that any proposal which is being submitted has to look at the Carnegie specific funding requirements and see how it could then be tailored to fit that. For us at Kisii University, a key consideration was the host fellow, and we strongly advised our applicants that the fellow needed to be sufficiently qualified to conduct the proposed research. We sought the advice from our links with our colleagues from Minnesota to help us make this connection to relevant scholars in the US and Canada who had adequate international research and experience, and we felt that based on their recommendations, we could then make the connection between them and our applicants. These enabled us to be able to get sufficiently qualified researchers from the network which they had established. There also was an organization which was called the Kenya Scholars Association, based in many parts, not only in the US, but also in Europe, which provided an additional connection of scholars. And so at the onset, I would wish to strengthen that aspect, that it is important to get a scholar who is going to be a fellow with adequate experience, and this scholar will work along with the applicant to develop a strong proposal, and based on their credentials, you could have a strong possibility of getting the funding. I also, during with our group, we tried to ensure that the research spoke to the audience of the reviewers. After many couple of years, I happen to have been lucky and honored to be one of the reviewers. And looking now at proposals, I try to look at those proposals which can speak to me as a reviewer based on the criteria which has been inputted by the Carnegie Africa Diaspora Fellowship Program. Again, the quality of the proposed research, it has to be specific, and there has to be relevant activities which are proposed within the the research which are able to be carried out within the specific time frame. A major aspect has been linked to curriculum co-development. And us as an institution, this was an area which we were interested in because we were at the phase of developing new curriculum. And most of the fellows who came to our institution had this component of co-curriculum development and also graduate and student teaching, training, and also mentorship. So we tried to factor in these aspects, and we also got the realization that these were aspects which were being looked at fairly strongly in the review process. The curriculum design would then be focused on creation of the overall course blueprint. Then we try to see how the mapping of the content could be made to specific learning objectives, and then also inclusion of a development of a course outline during the period where the fellow would be resident in Kisii University. We sought commitment from top management, and this greatly assisted. The top management made a commitment to aspects which are very important in these applications. Many of these would be linked to the ability to provide housing facilities. And at Kisii University, we worked towards ensuring that we had a guest house which was fully furnished to ensure that when the scholars would be resident, they would be well looked at here in Kenya and in Kisii. For us, we also factored in a component. We happen to be near Masai Mara National Park, which is a very a touristic area, and we tried to factor in for the fellows at least a visitation to that so that we could generate interest. So based on this, we were then able to put up these proposals and follow up and assist our faculty so that when they were submitted, they could have a good fit and quality and also get an appropriate match to enable us get that funding. There are some common mistakes which are made, which I have now gotten the realization. And one critical one is linked to the inability to get administrative support for co-hosting. And so I would strongly suggest that when you're putting in your proposal, try and ensure that you have a strong administrative support in terms of perhaps the guest house, or if there's no guest house, at least a living facility where the university would be able to co-host. The ability for, in our case, we would put aside a vehicle which would pick the fellow from the airport and bring the fellow to the university. And also, we would avail the vehicle at least twice a week for the fellow to carry out shopping in a nearby town. So just the ability to make the fellow comfortable would create a strong aspect in the proposal. Another common mistake is the weak articulation of the significance of the research. And it is important that when you're putting in the proposal, you are able to provide a strong articulation of how that research will be impactful to your institution, and especially create an ability of sustained partnership going forward. This is an aspect during the review which we are usually very interested in, because the ability for long-term sustainability then gives a more positive impression for the proposal as is being submitted. Within the institution, we benefited from being a small university at the onset. So there was limited bureaucracy, and the speed at which we were able to initiate correspondences between our researchers and the fellows in the US was very, very helpful. And I want to stop at this particular point, and I will look forward to any questions which will be submitted or any clarification linked to the process. And just to reinforce that it is important that you develop a proposal which looks at the overall Carnegie requirements, and also the ability to be able to share it, like with us, we formed a group to share it within your faculty members so that they can be able to pinpoint aspects which might be weak in it. Thank you very much for your attention and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Shitandi. If you do have questions for him, please go ahead and submit them in the Q&A box within Zoom, and we'll address them during our Q&A portion following Professor Mundoma's presentation. So now I am going to welcome Professor Mundoma. He is the Director of Shared Instrumentation Facilities in the Office of Vice Provost and Dean of Research at Stanford University in California. He has been awarded a Diaspora Fellowship through the CADFP to collaborate on projects at the University of Johannesburg and the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. He's actually been awarded the CADFP 3 times, and he was one of the first 33 fellows in 2014. He leads the strategy implementation and evaluation of the Shared Research Platforms Initiative at Stanford, as well as oversees planning of future activities that elevate Stanford's shared facilities to the next level. And among many core duties he collaborates with shared facilities leadership to address strategic operational issues that impacts the community, and supports development of new services to advance Stanford's research and education missions. Professor Mundoma has also served as a peer reviewer for the CADFP, reading and rating CADFP applications and recommending applications for final review by the Advisory Council. So welcome, Professor Mundoma. I'm going to share your slides here, and you should be able to see them momentarily. And
Thank you.
Welcome to start. Yes.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Professor Shitandi. It's good to meet you, and you will find that my presentation will have a range of flavors, but central to my presentation is the communication strategy that has to be accompanied by this by the award. So I was one of the first 33 fellows to be selected when the Carnegie program started. And right from the onset, one of the main thrust was to make sure that the project has enough publicity, both for the program or the fellow and the host, because we're just starting. So throughout my my engagement with the Carnegie program, I made sure that I worked very closely with the communication group at both the host institution and my institution. So this was an effort to make sure that, one, the objectives, the benefits, and the impact of the Carnegie program are codified and distributed for future support. So next slide. So as you can see, before I traveled, I made sure that I reached out to the host institution, and I also reached out to my communications group, and I specifically target the Department of Research our vice president of research office, their communications. This was done in such a way that we wanted to make sure that the benefits of participating in this program is not just a one-to-one between me and the host institution, but I wanted also my institution to have a bird's eye view on some of my initiatives. It was very important for me to look at the strategic goals of my institutions to see if there are areas where we can align, especially in the international development, international programs unit. So I reached out to the international programs unit to see what other projects they had ongoing in Africa, in what region, and throughout the world, and what was the what were the investments and long-term goals. So this was very important because I was going to take leave time from my institution. So I wanted to make sure that there is a close alignment with my activity and the broader needs of the university. So as a strategy, I made sure that I prepared publications and then have them in the newspaper, in whatever communication channels that they had at the university. So this is one of them. You'll see the news article in the slides if they are shared. Next, Randy. So my first visit was to University of Johannesburg. I've had prior communication with the University of Johannesburg, and I took the same approach with the University of Johannesburg. I wanted to see what is their strategic thrust internationally, and how are they engaging the international community in whatever area that they wanted. So I used my application to tailor my goals and objectives to align with the strategic initiatives that were being undertaken at the University of Johannesburg. So I then linked the two strategic needs of the two institutions to my specific project. And that helped me craft the project proposal, and that also helped me engage the university, especially the host, my host, and the senior administration, so that there is a seamless connection between what I was requesting and what my host, which was University of Johannesburg, was also looking at. So I always made sure that there is a close alignment between my interest and the host interest. And at the top, like Professor Shitandi mentioned, that we wanted to make sure that the objectives of the Carnegie Fellowship are actually met, and the impact that they sought is being realized. Next. So when I went to University of Johannesburg the first time, it was a 3-week visit, very short visit. It was the first time. I wanted to make sure that I truly understood the environment. So the first proposal was shot by design. I wanted to sit, listen, and observe, and first of all, seek to understand how the institution worked. So for the first week and a half, I sat in one of the labs and I observed as the students, professors came and went. I also started having very informal discussions, trying to sort of scan the environment, understand exactly what the problem is. As you can appreciate, in some of these institutions, there are so many unspoken needs, and there are also these sort of hidden highways that you might easily trespass. So I wanted to make sure that I have a clear understanding of the lay of the land, so that so if you have an opportunity to attend to visit some of these institutions, I strongly suggest that in the first week or two, to take time to really engage, even in very informal way, talk to people, any student, administrators, the office people, the people who clean the floors, really talk to everyone to understand, what are the real needs of the institution. And sometimes those are not spoken because of maybe internal politics that you might not be aware of. You also need to know who at the institution make the critical decisions. And our structure here in the United States, in terms of university, it's mostly flat. But if you visit a lot of institutions over in Africa, they have a very hierarchical structure. So you need to know how decisions are being made in those environments. And once you understand that, you can actually scale the scope and actually move very fast in terms of implementation. Next. And so when I mentioned before that you need to seed your the Carnegie experience gave me an opportunity to understand how the universities do work over in Africa. I was a graduate of University of Zimbabwe, so I know most of the my institutions are also closely related and interlinked with regional universities. So some of the programs that we have invariably bleed into these other institutions. It's mostly as a result of the funding structure that these universities have. So when I visited University of Botswana, I realized that the University of Johannesburg, I realized that there were so many faculty that had transitioned out of University of Johannesburg to University of Botswana. And so there is a cross-pollination of faculty. So try to take advantage of those linkages to explore way beyond the mandate of the Carnegie, mostly because you are now engaging the full ecosystem that exists in that area. So when I was at University of Botswana, I was introduced to the presidents, the two presidents of the two universities over in Botswana. So I took like a week out and visited these two institutions. So here I am flanked with by the presidents of the two universities. So I was at University of Botswana and Botswana International University of Science and Technology. So I went to meet these two presidents to sort of get an idea of the overview. What are the actual needs that are going unmet in the region? So I was able to get some of the information from the presidents from these two universities. And also one of the reasons I also took that 1 week to go to Botswana was that I was being funded and given leave time by my university. And I understood that my university, which is Florida State University, was trying to develop strategic partnerships with the country of Botswana in terms of research. So I took time out, reached out to Florida State and requested that I visit Botswana on the heels of President Masisi visiting Florida State. So I was able to link the strategic needs of the university with the strategic needs of the country of Botswana. So by doing so, not only am I a Carnegie Fellow, I'm also now an ambassador for the university. So I was actually sort of broadening the scope of what my university, which was at that time Florida State, could actually do. So this is what I meant by you need to look at the broader ecosystem, the broader impact of this unique opportunity that the Carnegie provides. And these visits might look like they are a little bit off the original mandate for the Carnegie, but what they've done is that there's now a higher commitment from my institution to give to grant leave time and to also engage a broader with a lot of African institutions, because we took a more strategic approach to in executing our Carnegie fellowship. So I wanted to highlight these specific activities and objectives to show that with the Carnegie fellowship, it's not just one-to-one, one scholar visiting one institution. It has to be the whole institution has to come with you. Your current institution has to come with you at every level, from international development, from whatever specific project you have, from the higher admin. And at some point, you might actually represent the state, because the state of Florida at that time was also creating synergies with the country of Botswana. So being able to bring all those small nuggets into a broader conversation was very critical. So even after I left Florida State, they've developed direct core programs with the University of KwaZulu-Natal, with University of Johannesburg, and they are now penetrating much deeper into the region in terms of educational engagement. Next. So Professor Shitandi mentioned that he makes the decisions after the projects have been reviewed. I've been fortunate enough to be part of the review panel for a number of years, and I might reiterate on some of the points he raised. First and above all, we need to make sure that as you're preparing your proposal, you need to align with the needs, goals, and aspirations and the purpose of the Carnegie Fellowship itself. And then once you have that, that will inform the objectives that you have. They have to be very clear. You have to have very clear objectives. And after you have clear objectives, the activities that you have to undertake at the host, with the host, they have to be measurable. You also have to make sure that the time allocated for each and every activity, matches the requested time, and they have to be. It has to be feasible. You cannot, for example, propose to have a curriculum development from scratch and be able to implement and prototype it in 3 weeks, for example. That is almost impossible. So you need to make sure that you're aligning your activities with the amount of time you are requesting. And then as you are doing all this, you make sure that you have the project impact in mind. You have to understand if what are the objectives here, what are the activities, what is the intended impact of this project. So those have to be clearly stated. And above all, you also want to make sure that this is not a one-off activity. There has to be a sustainability. It has to be followed up by even more impactful activities down the road. So there have to be, the project has to be sustainable in the long run. And cost share, this is not an afterthought, although it's part of the, it's on this linear scale, it's further down, but this has to be at the top of mind way before you even propose prepare your proposal, mostly because this is where you pull in senior administration, the people you normally don't work with. You have to develop those relationships before. You have to demonstrate that your project aligns with the goals of your institution, your project aligns with the goals, objectives of the host institution, your project aligns with the Carnegie Fellowship program. So that alignment will come in handy when you request this cost share. I was able to create that the cost share, the alignment, and most of my cost share did not come from the vice president of research. They actually came from the international from the international office, because they understood the strategic goal that was to be achieved by me visiting these institutions. So your natural partner in terms of cost share might not be the one that actually comes through. It might just to be alignment with a certain objective and investment that the university has made. So I was able to tap into the international programs that fully funded my time off at the university, as well as some of my travel. And then the scholar justification. This is critical in the sense that, as Professor Shitandi mentioned, there was prior sort of preparation in terms of reaching out to the Kenyan community over in Indianapolis. This type of activity makes sure that the scholars do have time to sort of assess the broader objectives of each institution, and then find a project that aligns with their qualifications, find someone that is willing and able and available to work with them. So the scholar justification has to be front and center. So this might look linear, but these two last items, which is the project cost share and the scholar justification, they are actually activities that happen way before you even think of applying, because you have to have an alignment with the type of program that you want to engage in. You have to have an alignment in terms of your objectives. What is the scholar, what is the host looking for, and how do they want to engage you, and at what level? So all that has to be done prior to you preparing the presentation, the proposal. So I've mentioned these in this order, mostly because this is also from a reviewer standpoint. This, I was just talking right here from me as an applicant going in, because I've applied for three times. So this is the type of thought process that went into my application, where I did prior work, groundwork before, secured cost share, and then make sure that after this is done, there's sustainability. So I worked from the end to the start here. So when we are reviewing these proposals, now I'm talking from the reviewer point of view. So when we are reviewing these proposals, we always start from the top. What are the objectives? You know, we want to make sure that there is there is merit in the actual project itself. And then once we know these are the objectives, are they doable, are they measurable, is everything being put together to demonstrate what is all about? And then going to the activities, are they clear outlined? Can they be supported? Can they be executed in the time that is being requested? And then from the flow into the impact, you know, what is the impact of these objectives, these activities, and are they impactful enough? Are they gradual in nature? You know, the Carnegie program started 2014, so we are up to a decade and over. So beyond just the gradual nature of the impact, you know, we are now looking more at a transformative impact, more deeper, going deeper into this investment, sort of a multiplier. So we are looking at more transformational impact from this investment, and then beyond that, is this sustainable? Can this be replicated even in the absence of scholar? Can the institution carry on without scholar? Can the scholar benefit from the objectivity in a way that is also sustainable? In the cost share is demonstrated. And sometimes cost share, it's easy to just simply write, oh, yes, we are going to fund the scholar transportation. Yes, we're going to do this or the other. This also shows up in the objectives, the impact. So every element is now considered. Even if a host scholar, a host institution says, yes, we're going to do this, we then look at the community that the host institution.
Professor Mundoma, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your audio is getting kind of garbled. I wonder if you might turn off your video, and maybe that helps with the transmission to help you finish up your portion. It's starting to sound a bit robotic.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So the project cost share is very important. We make sure that the investment the host is making is commensurate with the impact of this project. We don't want to saddle the host in this review with cost share that does not lead to an impactful outcome. And scholar justification, this is very, very important. We look at the qualification of the scholar as well as the needs of the host. Are there any synergies? Has there been any prior collaboration? So those are the elements we look for when we are reviewing your proposals. Next. Okay, so so this is just a just an overview of something I wrote in my reports to the university, and I was preparing to go to Johannesburg. So I mentioned that I had to prepare for this by looking at the strategic needs of my institution, linking them with the strategic needs of University of Johannesburg and another institution that I was working with. And then I was able to look at, you know, all those institutions. What are the scholars at? What are the needs of all those institutions, and how I can align them with this project. Next. So as you are preparing for your application, make sure that you focus on institutional support. It has to be evidence-based, and lean heavily on ongoing collaborations, and make sure that you are filling a real gap, and make sure that the project timelines tie in with the expected outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mundoma. At this time, I would like to open it for question and answer. If you have questions for our presenters, please go ahead and submit those into the Q&A box. At this time, we have some time to address questions submitted by our presenters who joined us today. While our folks, think of their questions and submit them, I'm wondering, Alfred and Claudius, if you could both think of the times that you've been reviewing applications that have been submitted for the program. And what, if you can think of, what is one key thing that really stands out to you that you immediately recognize, oh, this is a strong application?
Yes,
Professor Shitandi, want to go?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Mundoma. For me, one thing which usually stands out very strongly, I tend to look at the initial objectives which have been inputted by the applicant, and then I try to see from those objectives, of course, how specific they are, and in terms of measurability, whether I'll be able to they'll be able to be measured in that at the end of it, can these components stand out, and also just how realistic they are, just the way Professor Mundoma has said, because there are some, when they're inputted, you can clearly see that these are not objectives which can be realized within a 3 or 4 week time frame. So those are some of the things which will stand out for me immediately. Thank you.
So I do echo Professor Shitandi's focus on the objectives. So for me, when I look at the objectives, I immediately go down to the outcomes. Is there a direct link between these objectives? Are there stated clear outcomes that are realistic and linked to the objectives? So we look at I focus mostly on the outcomes to see what are the stated outcomes. Are they clear? Are they in alignment with what is being requested by the host? And are these outcomes that are also desirable for the fellow? So we look at the objectives and the outcomes, make sure that there is an alignment there.
Thank you. So we received a question here that I think, you both could answer, but I think Professor Shitandi would be a great resource for this person. What recommendations do you have for someone who's an academic administrator or university staff who are working on a project request? What recommendations would you have for them to create that strong application?
For me, I think the recommendation which I would make is they need to make that connection with a scholar who has strong qualities in the specific focal area which they want to. Again, listening to Professor Mundoma's presentation, you could see how that connection was very vital in terms of reaching out to the universities where he was going to have a focus on. So I would suggest that very strongly that reach out to a scholar with a good reputation whom you wish to work with, and that will be a very strong basis for an administrator. Thank you.
Claudius, do you have anything to add? Any other thoughts?
I think Professor Shitandi was exhaustive in that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A question I have for both of you, because I know you've both discussed the host institution's contributions and the cost share What would you recommend to an institution that maybe feels like it doesn't have the resources to contribute very much to cost share, but they, they want to be competitive, they want to submit a project request, but they aren't sure what to propose for cost share because perhaps they feel like they're lacking in the resources to provide something. What would you recommend they do to stay competitive in that portion of the application?
I think, okay, you can take that.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Professor. Yeah.
I think that while the host institution may not be able to some degree to pitch in on components of cost sharing, I feel that with some thought, there are always some elements where they could be able to input. And so I would recommend that if really they value the scholar who is going to come and contribute to the institution, there are some aspects which are not so difficult to cost share with. As I mentioned in the case of Kisi, even just a picking up someone from the airport, dropping them back to the airport, those are usually components which, in terms of costs, might not be really costly. But the other thing they could do, again, would be to look then at the possibilities of seeking support from other groups which may be able to cost share in components where they themselves might not be able to. But I feel strongly that the ability to do cost sharing shows a deep interest in the institution to be able to host the particular scholar. Thank you.
I do concur that there are so many intangible ways that hosting institutions who might be who might not have the resources to demonstrate that they can fund scholar can contribute. For example, the picking up of the scholar can actually be made more strategic and integrated to some of the ongoing activities at the university. So the scholar is coming with some expertise. So pairing, partnering, and sort of shadowing. So the person who picks up the scholar and sort of shepherds them through the university could be that one person who might carry the project forward. So partnering, that the institution availing human resources to be with the host with the scholar at any given time can be considered as a part of institutional support. And also one of those sort of peer mentor or someone shadowing the fellow could be someone who is also interested in grant writing, because the resources can also come through grant writing. So in engaging the host and the fellow in this process, you can come up down the road with possible grant applications for further funding to support these initiatives. So those are some of the activities that I've found to help in terms of making sure that the projects are well resourced going forward.
Thank you. Another question here related to your evaluation of project requests. You can think back again to the times that you're reading applications. This question is asking, how does the academic profile of the host colleague count, and how does that weigh into your evaluation of the project request, the academic profile of the host colleague?
The academic profile of the host colleague also counts in the sense that you need to have the possibility of sensing that they are working in areas where there will be a developed understanding of the project. If they're very dissimilar, then it raises the question that if you're thinking of it in terms of long-term sustainability, who will then take up that mantle of pushing whatever outcomes have come from the project on going forward? So it is necessary, while there may not be completely identical, but there needs to be a measure, a good measure of compatibility between the host credentials and the scholars' credentials. Thank you.
And I do concur about the need to have a strong leader. So your host has to have strong leadership in the area that you need to engage, because one of the main focus for the Carnegie program is to develop curricula. So for this curricula to be shepherded through the whole process and be implemented, you need a strong leader in that field who is influential in such a way that there is a possibility of implementation of your projects. If you're being hosted by a junior faculty, make sure that junior faculty has strong support from leadership at the university to be able to implement fully some of the objectives and goals of your project.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our Q&A. And now I just have a couple of reminders before we depart today. So here's our contact information for the program. And please feel free to reach out with any questions about the program. And a reminder, the application for project requests will open July 15th, 2024, and will close September 18th, 2024. And if your project is selected, the project visit can begin as early as January 6th, 2025, and the grant activity must be completed by November 30th, 2025. And we are hosting 2 application walkthrough webinars. One will be focused on project requests, and one is going to be focused on the scholar application. That will be available in the coming weeks. And so please visit our Facebook page you see listed here, and the LinkedIn page for the CADFP. We're going to post the registration links for those webinars. And then again, please contact us with any additional questions you have about the program and the upcoming application. I now want to give a very big thank you to Professor Shitandi and Professor Mundoma for joining us today to share their expertise and their thoughts and recommendations for submitting a competitive project request. Thank you both. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day today to speak with the applicants. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.